Hey guys, Lucky here. Due to popular demand, I'm trying to make a return to the recording life. While I do plan on getting to League Battles and such eventually, for now I just want to do a quick little test run on a topic I'm quite familiar with, and that is drafting a rain team in League format. This is a lot of fun for me, so if you have any more topics you want me to try to get into, please let me know. Anyways, let's get into it. So the first thing I want to talk about is why draft a rain team. So rain and weather in general in league format is nice because it gives you some benefits that most other teams don't have. The first main one is it gives you speed control in the form that all weathers have their weather abuser that doubles their speed in rain. So that's really nice. But in addition to that, rain has a couple other benefits, including it boosts the power of water moves. Um, it decreases the power of fire moves, which is an excellent defensive ability for rain in general. Um, and then it allows for 100% accurate hurricanes, 100% accurate thunders, and it also has a few other nice defensive weather related abilities that are good for rain. Um, so some of the pitfalls I've seen from other people drafting rain that they get into is one of two things. One, they focus way too hard on making everything rely around rain. While you can't have your team that does good when it's in rain, you also have to be able to win outside of rain when if your rain gets stopped, because otherwise it becomes way too easy to plan for and has a lot of stacked weaknesses if you just go ahead and get like four Swift swimmers and a whole bunch of other water types to benefit from the power boost. The other pitfall I see people fall into, and I actually did once, is you don't draft with the rain in mind. What I mean by that is you can have kind of two separate modes that, hey, these Pokemon I bring in rain, these I bring not bringing rain, and you never bring them together. For example, my personal experience is I had Arcanine on a rain team once. Probably just about the worst Pokemon you could have on a rain team because it has no secondary stab besides its fire type, and it being a more defensive mon, Morning Sun is weakened. You only recover 33%. So I was never going to bring that and rain at the same time. You kind of want to draft with rain in mind and say, hey, if I bring rain, can I bring this? If the answer is no, maybe you should look at drafting something slightly different. On the same vein, if you're drafting too many things that if rain is not up, is this just dead weight? That's also a problem. So now I'm going to get into how I would go about actually building the team. So the most important thing, obviously, is you've got to have your rain weather set. You can run rain dance manual set. It's really not that great, and you should not build a team around manual. So we have two options, Pelipper and Politoed. Now, generally, most people prefer Pelipper because it gets U-turn is I think the main thing. Um, and Hurricane is nice. Um, so there are benefits to it. It's the only weather setter, as far as I know, that can pivot out without hard switching. Um, it has reliable recovery, so it can come in, set the weather, and roost up and be safe throughout the match. It has Hurricane, so it can damage grass types, which are often a switch into rain. And 95 special attacks are pretty good special attack. But personally, I actually prefer Politoed as my rain setter for a few reasons. Um, it's not quad weak to electric, which is nice because you may end up stacking those. And I prefer to have different flying types on my team, on a rain team. Um, it's a bit bulkier, I think. It's not weak to rocks, which is nice because although you have boots now, most of the time you're probably running a damp rock. Um, and so you only take 12% versus the 25% Pelipper takes. So you're more likely to just be able to set it in, set the weather without having to worry about dying to rocks as much. In addition, it has some cool tools also, like if you're not running Drizzle, it gets water absorbed. It has Whirlpool, Parish Song, which is always fun to run. Um, but the big reason I prefer Polytoad over Pelipper is that it's usually cheaper. What I've seen is Pelipper runs in tier 2 and Polytoad runs in tier 3, which when you're getting that extra value for something that basically whose main goal most of the time is just setting up your rain, it's I prefer having those extra points and extra flexibility by going Polytoad. So once you've decided on your rain setter, the next thing to decide if they're allowed is megas. And there are three main megas that I think you should be going for on a rain team. Um, you could go the mega Swampert route, obviously, and that's usually everyone's main thought that, hey, I'm going to get that because, man, that thing is really fast and hits really hard in the rains. Obviously, that's a great choice. Um, the other two that I could see people going with is Mega Scizor for, as I'll get more into the rain team depth, it's more of a defensive option. I mean, obviously, it's still powerful, but when you can rain takes out its only weakness and it's already pretty bulky and hard to take out, it's a great defensive option that can also hit hard on a rain team. And again, it offers more flexibility throughout, I think. And then the last option is Mega Manectric. Now, if you're playing in Gen 8 without hidden powers, it's significantly worse. Its coverage is kind of lacking, but it's really fast, and thunders coming off of it hit really hard. Uh, you can go with other choices too. Mega Gyarados comes to mind if you're not going with too many um, Swift Swimmers, but I think these three are probably the best. So if you're not going, if you don't have megas, or even if you do, the next thing I probably look at is what Swift Swimmers you want. In my opinion, generally you want two Swift Swimmers max, and if you're doing that, you probably want one that's more physically based and one that's more um, specially based, because that way, depending on what your opponent's walls are, you can either bring one or both um, to break through what side they're weaker on. Um, so the best one I think, and whether you're only going with one Swiss Swimmer or two, is Kingdra. The reason is when you look at its stats, it's got a 95 attack and a 95 special attack. So both being even mean it can easily go either way. Now, most of the time it is run special, mostly because, you got Draco's powerful Hydro Pump, and the rain hits really hard. It gets Hurricane now, which is really cool. Another option to hit grasses, which is stronger than Ice Beam. But I think now it can easily go physical as well, because it gets access to Dragon Dance, which it always has. But the main reason I think that physical is more viable now is that it gets Scale Shot, which um, is a more reliable physical attack than Outrage, and also boost your speed even further. So once rain's done, you can be set up and be like, hey, I'm still pretty strong. And it also gets Flip Turn now, which is basically a water type U-turn, and that's physical. So having your Kingdra be more physically based can have that a little bit more power. Um, but it also is probably the best special swimmer out there. So I definitely say in a rain team, you want to make sure to get Kingdra regardless. Um, Now, if you're not going for mm, Mega Swampert, the two next best uh, physical swimmers are Barraskewda and Kabutops. Barraskewda's probably better because it has higher attack and speed, um, but it's probably going to cost a little more. So cost effective, you can think. Um, Kabutops is a good choice. And it gets flip turn, which is also really nice. I'm not sure, it does get Aqua Jet. So while you don't have any secondary stab like Kabutops has his Rock Slide, Barraskewda is almost certainly the next best, besides Mega Swampert, physical Swift Swimmer. So if you're going with two, I would probably go Kingdra and Barraskewda, and that would be good. Another option to consider is Seismitoad, and that's just because out of all of these, Seismitoad probably offers the most to a team outside of rain. Like if you're not bringing it as a swimmer, it's got water absorb, and it's a great defensive Pokemon. Um, Great dual stab. In addition, it's also fairly mixed. 95 attack, 85 special attack. You can go either physical or special. So Seismitoad's a pretty good option. I really like Kabutops because it's got decently high speed, especially in rain. It's got good utility in Stealth Rocks and Rapid Spin, so it can still be pretty useful outside of rain. Um, and obviously, having a secondary stab option is always nice to hit things that resist water. It gets Swords Dance, so you can boost its attack even more. You could go Dreadnought. I personally think Kabutops is better than Dreadnought in almost in pretty much everything. So, and they're probably going to be tiered around the same. So why would you not go for the one that's better? That's just me. And then a couple lower tier kind of value systemers you could go with that have certain niches is Ludicolo. Now it does not hit the hardest, especially, and it's fairly slow, only base 70 speed, so you can get out by a decent amount of Scarfers even under the rain if they're fast enough. But the cool thing that Ludicolo has is that it can hit opposing water types super effectively. The other thing is if you want to run it more defensive, it also gets a Rain Dish. So if you have like Leech Seed or Rain Dish leftovers, you can recover quite a bit of health if you want to make it defensive. Um, the other one is Poliwrath. Again, same kind of slow base 70 speed, but you get Belly Drum in the rain. So if you manage to set your rain, get out, get Poliwrath, get a Belly Drum, as long as rain's going, except for Scarfers, you can pretty easily win the game there. The nice thing with Gen 8 coming is now it does get some actual usable fighting stab and close combat and Drain Punch, so you're not stuck. You can hit something that resists water. So, um, now if you don't want to go two Swift Swimmers, there's a couple options available if you just want to go for like an offensive water type. And that doesn't necessarily have Swift Swim. And again, these are just my suggestions. You guys can add whatever you want, but it's kind of just a baseline that I follow. So the four main ones that I think off the top of my head that would be good in um, a as an offensive water, not a Swift Swimmer, are Keldeo, Starmie, Blastoise, and Manaphy, and they all have some combination of pivoting now that Keldeo gets flip turn, and Blastoise as well. So all a combination of pivoting, an ability that's nice in rain, like Rain Dish for Blastoise or Hydration Manaphy, um, some some sort of setup, or in the case of Starmie, it just gets really good coverage, and one of those is you can hit more powerful than Thunder and Rain. So it, if you don't mind having something that's maybe not quite as fast in rain, but still the water type hits hard, you can go with one of these, or these are the four main ones I suggest. Um, on the topic of Blastoise with Rain Dish, there are three other abilities besides Swift Swim that work well in rain. The first one is Hydration, which Goodra has, which has its status tiered at the end if rain is active. So that can act as both a status absorber if you want to come and take a sleep paralysis will-o-wisp, or what you can do is you can run rest in um, the rain, and it's basically a full recovery move, and then you heal the next turn. Just make sure to do it when you have not on the last turn of rain, because if you rest on the last turn of rain, uh, the rain will end before hydration kicks in, and then you'll just be asleep still. Guja is probably my favorite dragon type to have on a rain team, because in addition to hydration, this isn't necessarily rain related, but since you're going to be having water types in rain and multiple of them, grass is a shared weakness. So having Sap Sister and having that immunity to grass if you want, that's really good to have. The other one I could think of off the top of my head with Sap Sister that could be good on a rain team is Miltank. But that's just one ability to keep in mind on a rain team. Another good ability is Dry Skin, which Toxicroak and Heliolisk have, and that one you cover, you're immune to water, and you recover 1/8 health in rain at the end of the turn, which, even though both Toxicroak and Heliolisk are rather frail, you can still end up, you can get off life orb damage. If you set a sub, you can recover that quickly. Toxicroak, you can do something like, if you really want, you can do something like make it pretty defensive, and you can run like a bulk up, Drain Punch with leftovers and Dry Skin, and then you're becoming somewhat difficult to kill, just because if you can't outgo it, you're recovering so much health. And the other one is Rain Dish. And the reason I put Shiinotic here is it's the only non-water type, I believe, to have Rain Dish. And like I said earlier, you don't want to be stacking too many water types, because then your team has a bunch of shared weaknesses that, depending on your opponent's Pokemon, they can just run through your team and it becomes easy to prep for. So, the next thing is steals. Now, steel types we did every draft, and you can basically pick any steel, and it'll probably be good. But I'm gonna highlight a few here just because of the things that rain helps out with. For Scizor and Ferrothorn, they're quad weak to fire. So obviously, in case of Scizor, fire is its only weakness. So obviously having that reduced by the rain up is really helpful. Become hard to kill. Ferrothorn's just really annoying under rain. It's really hard to kill. Drafting it also means you don't have to play against it. I personally prefer Scizor just because it offers a little bit more, well, I don't know, I guess offensive presence in addition to the defensive presence. It does have defog, which is nice. Ferrothorn lets you have hazards, which is good, but yeah, either one of those are good. Bronzong is also a good one, because with Levitate, its only weakness, again, it's, well, that's only, now it has Dark and Ghost, but it still has less weaknesses than a lot of just general steel types. You can take out its fire weakness. It offers Stealth Rock, so I like Bronzong in the rain. Kartana is different. So it's obviously a very offensive Mon. It's got a decently high defense, so you can, like, in the rain, take fire punches, because that negates that. But I mean, even in the rain, a special flamethrower is probably going to kill, because its special defense is so pitiful. The thing about Kartana, why it's useful, is it helps to deal with the opposition's defensive mons trying to stop your rain. I personally don't like it as much, but I would go with Scizor or Ferrothorn probably. But you can go with it. Escavalier and Fortress are same typing as Scizor, with they only have that one weakness in rain, but neither of them are as good. It's just kind of like a lower tier pick that you could go with. So the next thing is you grass types, which are obviously helped out by not being weak to fire. The one thing I want to make sure to say in why I've kind of highlighted these is that they have recovery options that are not um, synthesis, so they're not hindered in rain. Um, Tapu Bulu doesn't have any like 50% recovery move, but with Grassy Surge and Horn Leech and Leech Seed, you can get some pretty good recovery. You can get some pretty good recovery in the rain. So, and also offers a great offensive presence to deal with opposing water types. That's good. Celebi gets recover and has a bunch of other things it can do for the team, like Stealth Rock and Pivot and Set Up and Baton Pass if that's allowed. Celebi's a bunch of cool stuff it offers. Amoonguss and Tangrowth, they only have Synthesis as their form of 50% recovery. However, they do have Regenerator. So you can go and take a hit and recover out that way. I think I prefer, I don't know which one I prefer. Both are good on a rain team. If you really want to go budget, you can also go Tangela. And then Shiinotic I put in there because, as mentioned earlier, it's got the rain dish to have a little bit extra health back. And then it's also got, I believe it gets strength step. Yes. So that's a form of recovery. Um, there's obviously other ones. I think the Decidueye comes to mind, and any grass type could be useful, but these are just some I've highlighted through them. Um, electric types. Um, electric types are nice because obviously you get that 100% accurate thunder, so that's a really powerful attack with 30% chance to paralyze. The probably best electric type in rain now is with the release of Crown Tundra is going to be Zapdos because now come Crown Tundra it's going to get Hurricane. So you could run something like, oh, and Weather Ball. So you could run something like Thunder, Hurricane, and Weather Ball in the rain. And that just, I mean, that's just hits really hard off a 125 special attack. Um, Another thing I like to look at for my electric types in on a rain team is I like them to have Volt Absorb if you're not getting like Zapdos, and that's why I have Thundurus T here above regular Thundurus, and Jolteon's on here. Jolteon also gets Weather Ball, this jet, so that does some water damage, water attack in there. But yeah, the Volt Absorb is nice because you're having probably at least two, maybe three water types on your team, and maybe a flying type. You're gonna have some weakness to electric, so it's nice to have something that can switch into that. Um, Thundurus is nice, just then in its eye because it gets Prankster, so you can have a backup Prankster Rain Dance for your team for you're going all out rain there and hey, something happened to your rain setter and you still need to get it up. That's always nice. And then Heliolisk, obviously, the dry skin, it's a weather lizard. It does come in all forms of weather, including rain. It also gets surf, so that's nice as it gets a 1.5 boost. So you've got that pseudo stab in rain. The same thing happens with Raikou now. With I believe it gets what it's getting Weather Ball in Crown Tundra. If oh, it already has it. If not, it also gets Skull. It's also getting Skull now. So Raikou's another one that could do well in rain. The next thing I'm talking about, this is probably going to surprise people. You can draft a fire type on a rain team. Um, the you want to make sure that it has a secondary stat that's not just fire, first of all. And any of those could work, but these six I have here are probably the best one. My favorite is Volcarona because it does really good against grass types and can hit water types too with its bug with its bug buzz. Um, if in rain, it forces prep in that you can't just full out prep like to stop the rain because hey, Volcarona is gonna come in if it's not in rain and do some work on the opposing team. Um, it also gets Hurricane, which is nice because that's a coverage option that's very powerful and won't miss. Volcanions here because it gets stabbed as water type moves, they get powered up. Again, I don't necessarily like it because you're stacking a few weaknesses, but it is what it is. If you want to do that, you can. These three are all very similar in that they have a Hurricane. Talonflame is really interesting because of uh, Gale Wings and Hurricane. I mean, it's usually thought of as a physical attacker, but its special attack's not that much weaker, and I mean, you don't have to worry about missing hurricanes or necessarily getting damaged by the recoil of hurricanes. So you can just uh, have priority hurricanes in the ring. That sounds pretty cool. Um, and then the last one is Roto Heat because it's got those thunders. The last thing to think about, and I mean, not necessarily the last thing, or the last thing I'm to talk about is my main hurricane spammers, which Tornadus T is probably my all-time favorite one in draft in general. It's great in the rain. Its main downfall usually is that it's only stab in flying. It doesn't have great stab options, but in the rain, when Hurricane's hitting all the time, it's great. Regenerate allows for more of a defensive presence. If you want to go the more offensive route, you can go toward D because of that prankster. Also helps with setting rain if you need to. Um, Dragonite is an interesting option because it does get in addition to getting its stab hurricane, it also gets thunder and it gets some sort of water move. It gets surf, I know. I believe. Yeah. So pseudo stab on that. That's pretty good coverage options. Salamence now gets Hurricane, so that's good. Wyvern is another option for speed outside of rain. Hurricane, your main goal is just Slime is a really good type, but normally Hurricane's iffy on the accuracy, but obviously in rain hits all the time. So um, that's kind of how the main things I build my team. Then after that, what you're looking at the very end, you want to make sure to get a ground type. It doesn't really matter which one, but you want to make sure to get something that they can't just spam. Opponents can't just spam thunders against you. Yeah. Oh, real quick for electrics. I didn't include it in here. Taboo Coco is obviously great, but I think with Crown Tundra and the stuff it's getting, it's going to get banned mostly. So that's that. But anyways, that's kind of how I go about thinking about my rain team. Let me go what you guys think. Again, this was a lot of fun, so let me know if you have any more topics that you kind of want me to go through and talk about. I will see you guys later.